So guys, today we'll be looking at program implementation, specifically generation of languages and the difference between low level languages and high level languages. Now before I actually jump into today's topic, let me first say that this video is recorded live. So from time to time you will hear me making mistakes. Don't worry about it, clarifications will be made. Um Next thing, if there is something that is said in this particular video that you do not understand, feel free to post a comment below and clarifications will be given as soon as possible. Additionally, if you're having problem with any particular topic in your IT syllabus and would like some assistance, you can always shoot me an email or leave a post somewhere here and I will respond to you as soon as possible with a video. Now, without further delay, let us jump right into today's topic. Now, as mentioned before, today we'll be dealing with the generation of languages. And as you can imagine, there are actually five of them. They are first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Easy, not true? Exactly. Let's move on. Now, the first one that we will look on is actually first generation, also called machine language. Now, to be honest, these are the only type of language that the computer can understand directly. Remember that. Machine language or first generation languages is the only type of language that the computer can understand directly. You need to remember that for CXC. Alright, machine languages or first generation language tends to be harder for human beings to understand. And the reason for that is because machine languages or first generation languages uses ones and zeros. Yes, it uses ones and zeros. Let's move on. Now, there are some disadvantages and advantages of first generation languages that you need to be aware of. You don't have to remember all of them, but at least you need to remember one advantage and at least one disadvantage, right? Now, advantage of first generation language, it is able to be executed very fast by the computer as there is no need for translation. All this is saying that since if you write a program using machine language, it will be in the original form that the computer understands. So the computer will be able to run or execute this program very quickly. That's all it is saying. Now, the first disadvantage of first generation language is that it is very difficult to read, write, and understand. And as I have said before, the reason for this is because programs written in first generation languages is actually done in zeros and ones. Um, First generation languages, they tend to be machine dependent, and all this is saying is that if you should write a program using machine language on one type of computer and take that same program and try to run it on another type of computer, it won't run. No, it won't run at all. And the reason for that is that because first generation languages tends to be machine dependent. The last disadvantage that you need to know about is it is difficult to modify or correct mistakes. Again, if you should write a program in machine languages, you should remember that machine languages uses ones and zeros. So you can just imagine if you write a program that contains 1 million lines of code, you make a mistake somewhere, you put a zero where a one should be, it will take you years to actually find that mistake and correct it. Cool. Now, in terms of first generation languages, the main thing that you need to remember is that it's also called machine languages. It uses ones and zeros. It is hard for human to understand. Not that we cannot understand it, it's just hard for us to understand. Oh, you also need to know that it is machine dependent. Let's move on. Now, the next generation that we'll be looking at is what we call second generation, right? On the second generation language, you will find what we call assembly language. So assembly language would fall under second generation. Now, assembly language is written using mnemonics. Don't worry about it. Mnemonics is just fancy word for meaningful abbreviation, right? So let me repeat. Assembly language uses mnemonics. Assembly language must be converted to machine language before the computer can execute and run it. And again, the reason for this is because the computer can only understand machine language. Cool. So if you should write a program in assembly language, then the computer will first need to convert it to machine language before it actually can run it. Right? Now, an assembler is a program used to convert assemble language to machine language. You need to remember this. Remember this, people. An assembler is a software or a program that is used to convert assembly language to machine language. Okay? Good. Let's move on. Now, advantages and disadvantages of assembly language or second generation languages. Now, second generation languages are easier to understand and read compared to machine languages, and the reason for this is because it uses mnemonics or abbreviation. Human beings, it is easier for us to understand abbreviations of words, etc., compared to ones and zeros. It is easier to modify or correct mistakes compared to machine languages, and again, it's because it uses abbreviation compared to machine languages that uses ones and zeros. Disadvantage: it's slower to execute program written in assembly language or second generation languages, right? And the reason for this is because if you should write a program using second generation languages, specifically assembly language, then your program will need to be converted to machine language before the computer can actually run it, right? Another disadvantage is that it is still machine dependent. Simple again, it means that if you write a program on one particular type of machine using second generation languages, then chances are this program won't be able to run on another type of machine, right? Let's move on. Now, the next one that we will look at is actually third generation languages, or it is called 3GLS. So in CXC, you might see CXC is saying, give an example of third generation languages, or give an example of 3GLS language. Now, 3GLS languages uses English-like statement. Actually, these are the type of programming language that human beings like to use, and again, the reason for this is because it uses English-like statements, right? Third generation languages are procedural languages. And all this is saying that the programmer writes instruction to tell the computer what to accomplish and how to accomplish. So it's a procedure, right? Now, examples of third generation languages or 3GLS is actually Pascal, that's the one that you do for CXC. C, that's the one that they do for Cape. You have Java, that's the one that they use to write Android app. So if you are interested in Android development, then Java is the one that you would want to learn. You have Basic. Basic is basically a programming language that they normally use to teach persons who are just learning to use programming. But guess what? It's kind of outdated now. Persons don't really use it that much anymore. You have Fortran, right? That's the one that they use in businesses. They still use it, but in big businesses. 3GLS languages must be converted to machine language in order for it to be executed. And again, the reason for that is because machine languages only understand ones and zeros, while third generation languages uses English-like statement. So that's the reason why it has to be converted to machine language before the computer can execute it. Alright, a compiler, you need to know the difference between a compiler, an interpreter, and a assembler, right? I'm giving you a minute to think about it. Alright, now that you have thought about it, let's move on. A compiler or an interpreter is used to convert high-level language to machine language. Remember that. A compiler translates an entire program before executing it, while an translator interpret or translate or execute a program line by line. So all this is saying that if you are using a compiler as a programmer, the compiler will wait on you to finish your entire program before it converts it to machine language. While if you are using an interpreter, each time you write a statement or a line, the interpreter will translate it to machine language for you. And you already know about assembler. You already know that an assembler is a program that is used to convert assembly language Alright, advantages of 3GLS or third generation languages. It is easier to read compared to machine language. It is easier to write, and it is easier for us to understand it as human being. It's also machine independent, meaning that if you should write a program using third generation languages on one type of computer or machines, you can take that same program and run it on another type of machine, and guess what? It will actually run, right? You need to remember that. Let's move on. Now, disadvantages or disadvantage, it's slow in execution compared to machine language. Can you explain why? Exactly, because machine language is the only language that the computer understands. If you should write a program using third generation language, then the computer will need to convert that program that you have written to machine language before it actually can run, and this tends to be slower than if you had written a program using machine language in the original form that the computer can understand. Capish? Let's move on. Alright, the next one that we will be looking at is actually fourth generation languages, right? Now, fourth generation languages is actually similar to third generation languages. Just remember that. Except the only exception I think, or I can remember right now, is that it is easier to write and understand than 3GLS, right? They uses English-like statement just the same as third GLS, right? They tend to use a lot of wizard, so you just click, 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 click. If you have ever installed a program before, then you will understand what I'm talking about. Alright, examples of 4GLS, is actually SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. If you did your SBA and you did the database section of it, when you were writing your query, you were actually using some form of 4GLS. Remember that. Moving on. Now, 4GLS advantage. 4GLS are designed to reduce overall time, effort, and cost of software development. Disadvantage needs to be converted to machine language. I know that already, just like 3GLS. Not true. Programs written in 4GLS run slower than programs written in other languages, and the reason for this is the same reason as for the 3GLS. Alright, the next one that we'll be looking at is fifth generation. These are non-procedural languages, right? Meaning that the program has to use the goal to be achieved, but not the steps, right? Sounds awesome, don't? Yeah, man, great, man. Think about it. You sit around a computer and you want to write a program. All you have to do is state the goal or what you need to achieve, and guess what? The computer will actually write the steps for you to achieve your goal. Robotics programming kind of use this type of technology. Like if you want to go in robotics development, you will do some form of fifth generation languages. You can read up further on Prolog and Mercury. There are two examples of fifth generation languages. Alright, 4GLS will be able to communicate in natural spoken languages. So what this is saying is that you will be able to just sit in front of your computer, speak to it, and it will create the particular. Alright, the difference between low level languages and high level languages. Now, low level languages consists of machine languages and assembly languages. Remember, if you remember, machine languages would fall under first generation, and assembly language would fall under second generation, right? Now, both machine languages and assembly languages are considered to be low level languages. Remember that. Now, these type of languages are machine dependent, and you should know what are machine dependent languages already, right? It simply means that a program that is written on one type of machine cannot run on another type of machine, so they are machine dependent. These programs are not easily portable, and the explanation that was just given is the same meaning for portability. High level programming languages such as Pascal and C, these are machine independent machine dependent language can run on any different types of machine. So all this is saying that if you should write your program on one type of machine and take that same program to another type of machine, guess what, it will actually run. um I think you should also know that high level languages uses English like statements, while low level languages uses either zero or mnemonics. And we should know again that mnemonics is just a big fancy word for meaningful abbreviation. Right? Cool. Now guys, please remember, if there is something that was said or done in this particular video that you do not clearly understand, feel free to leave a comment below. Also be cognizant that this video was recorded live, so from time to time mistakes will be made,